In the vast wetlands of Louisiana, beneath a reddish-brown swamp, a more than half-century-long ecological revolution is surging. When the dawn first appeared, the mist in the Mississippi River Delta had not yet dissipated, and this seemingly peaceful swamp had already awakened. On the water surface, aluminum fishing boats cut through the calm, and fishermen began a new day of work. Under the surface of the water, millions of crustaceans are building their vast underground empire. These unwelcome guests dressed in bright red armor waved their giant claws and laid a winding, red front line, along the riverbank. They are not the indigenous people of this area, but with their astonishing adaptability, they have rewritten the rules of freshwater ecology in North America. This is the story of Crawford, an ecological engineer originally from South America. Their arrival has triggered a modern ecological fable full of profound contradictions. On the one hand, these organisms are highly destructive invasive species, causing systemic collapse of local ecosystems wherever they go. On the other hand, they have spawned a massive industry with an annual output value of up to $5 billion, becoming the mobile red gold that countless communities rely on for survival. In this protracted battle of ecology and economy that has lasted for over half a century, American society has played both a resistance role. Playing the dual role of a collaborator, the crawfish problem transcends the purely ecological realm. Becoming a complex proposition intertwined with economic, cultural, and social choices. The prelude to this ecological drama did not stem from accidental events, but from humanity's ambition to systematically transform nature. To understand today's predicament, we must go back to that critical moment over half a century ago. Carefully planned introduction, the Hope Project of proteins. In the 1950s, the southern states of the United States urgently sought cheap and efficient protein solutions amidst the wave of post-war economic recovery. At that time, agricultural experts turned their attention to the residents of tropical waters in South America, giant red crawfish. This crustacean is large in size, with an adult body length of up to 10 to 12 centimeters, and reproduces rapidly, 2 to 3 generations per year, seemingly perfectly meeting the needs of intensive farming. What's even more exciting is that they don't have high requirements for water quality and can use various organic waste as a food source, making them an ideal, protein conversion machine. The initial introduction was carefully planned and scientifically validated. Between 1950 and 1965, the Louisiana Department of Agriculture imported hundreds of thousands of shrimp from Brazil and Argentina, establishing the first large-scale aquaculture bases. These crawfish are placed in carefully designed artificial rice fields and irrigation canals, with the expectation of forming a closed aquaculture system. The agricultural report at the time optimistically predicted, "This magical creature will double our protein production within 3 years without causing any negative impact on the local ecology." This optimism was so strong that in the 1955 State Agricultural Development Plan, Xiaolong breeding was listed as a key support project and received a large amount of government subsidies. Natural counterattack, the ecological Pandora's box opened by floods. However, natural systems never easily accept human planning. The unique subtropical climate along the Gulf Coast of the United States has brought frequent hurricanes and seasonal floods, which has become a key turning point in changing the ecological pattern. Natural events such as Hurricane Betsy in 1965 and the Mississippi River flood in 1973 allowed millions of crawfish to break free from the constraints of farms and enter the crisscrossing natural water systems. These extreme weather events are like opening Pandora's box of ecology, releasing forces beyond human control. This large-scale, biological escape event coincides with the period of great development of agricultural irrigation systems in the southern United States. Crawford utilizes well-connected irrigation channels as migration corridors to achieve geographic diffusion across watersheds. They were pleasantly surprised to discover that the rivers and lakes on the North American continent are vast playgrounds lacking natural predators. There are no native predators, no competitors, only abundant food resources and suitable living environments. In just a few short years, these escaped individuals established a stable wild population and began to expand outward at an astonishing rate. Strategic expansion, the path of biological colonization in the Mississippi River system. The Mississippi River system, a vital artery of life on the North American continent, unexpectedly became the biological highway for crawfish's conquest journey. They exhibit amazing environmental adaptability. They can swim downstream, crawl upstream, and even migrate short distances on wet land, which allows them to break through the geographical limitations of traditional aquatic organisms. Their unique digging habits have not only changed the structure of the riverbank, but these 1.5-meter deep caves have also become military strongholds for their expansion, providing protection and breeding grounds for the population. Ecologist James Rabel pointed out in his 1982 research report that the expansion pattern of crawfish is similar to precision military operations, first establishing bridgeheads, and then radiating into surrounding waters. Their propulsion speed is astonishing, reaching up to 20 kilometers per year in some watersheds. By the end of the 20th century, this red front had advanced northward from the Texas Bay coast to Illinois and eastward to western Florida. What is even more worrying is that they exhibit significant phenotypic plasticity and have successfully adapted to colder water bodies in the north, establishing a stable population along the shores of Lake Michigan. This adaptability renders the traditional climate barrier theory completely ineffective. The reason why crawfish has achieved such brilliant invasion success is due to its evolved perfect survival strategy. These strategies are not only reflected in physiological characteristics, but also in their interaction with the environment. Reproductive hegemony, population dynamics of exponential growth. From the perspective of population ecology, Crawford is a typical master of R strategies. The core of this strategy is to ensure population survival through high reproductive rates. A healthy female shrimp can lay 100 to 600 eggs during a single reproductive season. These eggs are carefully carried on the mother's abdominal limbs, enjoying continuous ventilation and protection, with a hatching rate of over 80%. More importantly, its sexual maturity cycle is extremely short. Under suitable conditions, it only takes 3 months from juvenile to sexual maturity, which means that multiple generations can be replaced within a year. The population dynamics model shows that assuming an initial population of 100 individuals, half male and half female, theoretically, more than 100,000 offspring can be produced within 1 year without environmental restrictions. This geometric growth makes it impossible for local species to compete. Dubois, an ecology professor at Louisiana State University, pointed out that their reproductive strategy is like a sophisticated biological machine, not seeking individual perfection, but seeking population advantage. While native species are still striving for the survival of individual offspring, crawfish has already submerged the entire ecosystem through its numerical advantage. Nutrient-grade universal, comprehensive occupation of ecological niche. In terms of nutritional niche, crawfish exhibits astonishing adaptability. They are typical opportunistic omnivores, with a diet that includes aquatic vascular plants, 35% of the diet, benthic invertebrates, 25%, organic debris, 20%, fish eggs and juveniles, 15%, and amphibian larvae, 5%. This sweeping, feeding behavior seriously damages the original food web structure, causing multiple trophic levels to be under pressure simultaneously. What is particularly destructive is their feeding behavior on aquatic vegetation. By directly feeding on the roots and tender stems of plants, they can transform dense water grass beds into murky, underwater deserts within a few weeks. Research has shown that when the density of crawfish reaches 5 per square meter, the biomass of aquatic plants decreases by 90% within 60 days. This habitat change triggers a chain reaction. The number of juvenile fish and benthic invertebrates that rely on vegetation shelter sharply decreases, and birds and fish that feed on these organisms disappear as a result. The entire ecosystem seems to have undergone a silent revolution, with the original inhabitants being expelled and new rulers establishing their status. Ecosystem engineering, the hidden force of geological transformation. As a typical ecosystem engineer, Crawford's digging behavior has had a profound geological impact. Their cave network is as deep as 0.5 to 1.5 meters, with a diameter of 3 to 10 centimeters and a density of up to 20 caves per square meter. This large-scale underground engineering has led to a series of ecological consequences. The stability of the riverbank structure decreases, the erosion rate increases by 300%, and a large amount of sediment enters the water body. The agricultural irrigation system is damaged, resulting in repair costs exceeding $200 million annually in the United States. The water is permanently turbid, with a decrease in transparency of 80%, which affects the efficiency of photosynthesis. Changing sediment transport patterns, reshaping underwater topography and channel structures. These changes not only affect aquatic organisms, but also alter the physical and chemical properties of the water body. The increase in turbidity reduces the depth of light penetration and affects the productivity of phytoplankton. The resuspension of sediment promotes the release of nutrients, which may trigger algal blooms. The cave system provides new habitats for other organisms, but at the same time, it also destroys the structure of the original habitats. Allelopathy and disease transmission, intangible ecological weapons. The latest research has found that crawfish can also affect ecosystems through allelopathy. The special pheromones they release can inhibit the spore germination of certain aquatic plants, which puts local plants at a disadvantage in competition due to the allelopathic war. At the same time, they act as pathogen carriers to spread the cranfish plague, Aphanomyces astacei, causing devastating damage to the native population of crayfish. The experience in Europe shows that after introducing red crayfish, the native noble crayfish population decreased by 95% within 5 years. The use of this biological weapon gives crawfish an absolute advantage in ecological competition. They not only exclude local species through direct resource competition, but also weaken their opponents by changing environmental conditions and spreading diseases. This multi-pronged strategy often leaves local species defenseless and forced to retreat one after another. While ecologists were worried about this red flood, American society, with its unique pragmatism, turned the crisis into business opportunities. This transformation process not only reflects human adaptability, but also demonstrates the complex role of market forces in ecological management. Industrial dawn, from disaster management to business awakening. The rise of the crawfish industry was initially driven by considerations of disaster prevention and control. In the 1970s, the Louisiana government began encouraging fishermen to catch crawfish to control its population size. But soon, the invisible hand of the market began to take effect. The unique culinary wisdom of the Kazan people, using spices such as chili, bay leaves, garlic, etc. to cook crawfish, creates an extremely attractive culinary experience. This cultural innovation of transforming alien species into delicious food has laid a solid foundation for the development of the entire industry. In 1978, the first commercial crawfish processing plant was established in Lafayette, marking the modernization stage of this industry. By 1985, Louisiana had over 125 specialized processing enterprises with an annual output value exceeding $300 million. The industrial scale reached $1 billion in 1995, surpassed $3 billion in 2010, and has now grown into a huge industry worth $5 billion. This growth trajectory not only reflects the expansion of market demand, but also the improvement of industrial organization and the promotion of technological progress. Fishing ecology, the survival game of modern fishing and hunting. Today's professional Crawford fishermen have developed a sophisticated fishing system. They use specially designed cylindrical shrimp traps, diameter 45 centimeters, length 60 centimeters, to attract crawfish with rotten fish or specialized bait. Each fishing boat releases 300 to 500 shrimp cages per day, which are harvested after soaking for 4 to 8 hours. Although this fishing method may seem simple, it actually contains profound ecological wisdom. Fishing activities exhibit a distinct ecological rhythm. From February to March, they mainly work in shallow swamps, during which the water temperature rises and crawfish become active. From April to June, it turns to deep water channels, which is the peak breeding season. From July to September, fishing will be suspended during the breeding season to protect the sustainable development of the population. Limited fishing in specific areas from October to December. This homework model based on ecological knowledge not only ensures resource sustainability but also optimizes economic benefits. Fishermen have mastered the behavioral patterns of crawfish through the experience passed down from generation to generation, enabling fishing activities to be coordinated with natural rhythms. Global industrial chain, a journey from swamp to world. The modern crawfish industry has formed a complete global supply chain. The captured crawfish are strictly graded, oversized, 15 to 20 pieces per pound, are air freighted to high-end restaurants, medium size, 21 to 25 pieces per pound, enters supermarket retail, small size, 26 to 30 pieces per pound, used for processing products. This refined grading not only enhances product value, but also meets the needs of different markets. The innovation of processing technology has significantly extended the shelf life of products. IQF, individual rapid freezing, technology can complete monomer freezing within 15 minutes at -40 degrees Celsius, maximizing the freshness and tenderness of meat. The advancement of seasoning technology enables various flavors, such as kazu flavor, garlic-flavored cream, spicy, etc., to meet the demands of different markets worldwide. From traditional restaurants in New Orleans to izakayas in Tokyo, from upscale restaurants in Paris to night markets in Beijing, Crawford has become an important symbol on the global food map. Cultural reconstruction, from invaders to identity symbols. The most sociological significance lies in the cultural transformation of crawfish. The annual spring crawfish season has become a cultural event in the southern United States. The New Orleans Crawfish Festival attracts over 500,000 tourists annually, consuming 300 tons of crawfish. This dietary culture has also given rise to related artistic creations, such as the crawfish blues in Zydeco music and the crawfish themes in folk paintings. These cultural expressions not only enrich the local cultural landscape, but also strengthen the regional identity of community residents. Sociologist and Rivers research shows that 87% of Louisiana residents consider crawfish to be an important symbol of cultural identity. This profound cultural identity makes any eradication plan politically and socially unfeasible. Crawford has transformed from an outsider to a homebody, and this identity shift is a key factor in establishing its permanent position in the North American ecosystem. Faced with this $5 billion ecological paradox, the governance system in the United States is facing unprecedented challenges. This challenge not only comes from the technical level, but also from the complexity of value judgments and balancing interests. The evolution of management philosophy, from eradication to adaptive management. The management practices of the past 50 years have witnessed a profound transformation in philosophy. The eradication era of the 1970s attempted to use pesticides, biotoxins, and other methods, but the results proved to be ineffective and brought about secondary ecological disasters. In the 1980s and 1990s, we entered the era of control, with a focus on physical barriers and selective fishing. Since the 21st century, adaptive management has become the mainstream concept, recognizing the fact that crawfish is a component of the ecosystem and instead pursuing a dynamic balance between ecological and economic goals. The current management strategy is based on three key points: protecting non-invasive waters, prevention, controlling the ecological impact of invaded areas, mitigation, and utilizing existing resources reasonably, utilization. This pragmatic attitude has received widespread support from academia and industry. Managers recognize that in this Anthropocene era, we need to learn to coexist with these new naturals instead of futile attempts to return to an imagined, primitive state. Ecological assessment of commercial fishing: is it a cure or a placebo? The assessment of the ecological effects of commercial fishing presents a complex picture. Positive effects include: approximately 100,000 tons of biomass are directly removed annually through fishing. Provide detailed data for monitoring population dynamics. Creating economic incentives to promote people's maintenance of wetland ecological health. But ecologists also point out its limitations. Uneven distribution of fishing pressure and lack of control in ecologically sensitive areas. Industrial dependence may create a reverse incentive of needing to maintain a certain population. Selective fishing leads to artificial changes in population structure, which may enhance their adaptability. This complexity requires us to adopt a more dialectical perspective when evaluating the impact of fishing. Commercial fishing is neither a panacea nor a culprit that exacerbates problems, but an important variable in complex ecological and social systems. The prospects and risks of innovative control technologies. Frontier research is exploring new control methods. Gene-drive technology: theoretically, population fertility can be reduced by introducing sterile genes. Specific pathogens: screening microbial preparations for specific infection of red crayfish. Behavioral interference: using pheromones to disrupt their mating and gathering behavior. But these technologies all face severe ethical and ecological risk challenges. Any application of new technology must undergo rigorous risk-return assessment. For example, although gene-drive technology is theoretically effective, it may bring unpredictable ecological consequences. Specific pathogens may mutate and affect non-target species. These risks require us to maintain a cautious attitude when promoting technological innovation. Global climate change has added new variables to this ecological drama. These changes may not only alter the existing ecological balance, but also create new management and governance challenges. 1. Ecological prediction of northward expansion of distribution area. Climate models predict that by 2050, the suitable habitat for crawfish will expand northward by 300 to 500 kilometers. Important freshwater ecosystems that have not yet been invaded, such as the Great Lakes region and the Ohio River Valley, are facing serious threats. This geographical expansion may bring new ecological disasters and economic losses. Especially for the fishing and tourism industries in the Great Lakes region, which may have serious impacts, these areas are currently not prepared to deal with such invaders. 2. The impact of phenological changes on industries. Warm winter leads to earlier breeding season and longer growing season for crawfish. Although this may increase production in the short term, it will also disrupt the existing fishing and market rhythms. A longer active period means that its impact on the ecosystem is prolonged, which may exacerbate the ecological impact. At the same time, this change requires corresponding adjustments to each link of the industrial chain, from resetting the fishing season to adjusting the processing plan, all of which require the coordinated adaptation of the entire industrial system. 3. Amplification effect of extreme climate events. Frequent and intensified extreme weather events such as hurricanes and floods provide new opportunities for the spread of Crawford. The case of crawfish establishing in new waters was observed after Hurricane Harvey in 2017. This kind of leapfrog diffusion through extreme events makes traditional defense line settings difficult. Managers need to rethink their prevention and control strategies, shifting from passive border defense to more flexible adaptive management. Chapter 6. Comparison and implications from a global perspective. The story of the crawfish invasion is not unique to the United States, and similar plots are being repeated on different stages worldwide. Through comparative research, we can gain deeper insights. 1. Experience and lessons from Europe. In Europe, the invasion of crawfish has led to the collapse of native populations of crayfish. Especially in Spain and France, the invasion of red crayfish has put native species on the brink of extinction. The management experience in Europe emphasizes early intervention and habitat protection, which has important reference value for North American managers. At the same time, Europe's attempts to control populations through commercial fishing also provide useful references. 2. Control mode in Asia. In East Asia, especially Japan and China, different strategies have been adopted for the management of invasive species. These regions place greater emphasis on the combination of comprehensive utilization and biological control, meeting market demand through the development of aquaculture, thereby reducing fishing pressure on wild populations. This combination of dredging and blocking strategy may provide new ideas for the United States. 3. Africa's warning. In some regions of Africa, the invasion of crawfish has led to even more severe ecological consequences. Due to the lack of mature management systems and industrial foundations, the ecosystems in these regions have suffered more severe damage. This warning tells us that establishing effective management systems and industrial systems is crucial for responding to biological invasions. The story of Louisiana Crawford is a profound allegory about ecological management in the Anthropocene. It tells us that in this era of deep human transformation of the earth, the simple binary opposition between good and bad has become ineffective. We need to develop more refined and inclusive ecological governance wisdom. The inspiration from this case is multifaceted. Firstly, prevention is far superior to governance. When introducing new species, a strict risk assessment system must be established to fully consider their potential ecological impacts. The lessons of history tell us that prevention in advance is more effective and cost-effective than remediation afterwards. Secondly, when invasion becomes a fait accompli, we need to learn to coexist with the new nature and develop evidence-based adaptive management strategies. This management should be based on scientific monitoring and evaluation, and can be flexibly adjusted according to actual situations. Thirdly, economic interests and ecological protection are not always in opposition, and a win-win solution can be found through institutional innovation. The experience of the development of the crawfish industry shows that with the cooperation of market mechanisms and appropriate regulation, economic benefits can become a driving force for ecological protection rather than a hindrance. Finally, and most importantly, we need to rethink our position in nature. We are both managers and participants of ecosystems, and this dual identity requires us to take on special responsibilities. We can no longer consider ourselves conquerors, but should learn to coexist harmoniously with the ecosystem as a part of it. The red flood still surges in the swamps of the United States, serving as both an ecological lesson and an innovative opportunity. In this Anthropocene era, we need to develop new wisdom that coexists with this complexity, both ecological conscience and practical courage, as well as creativity to transform crises into driving forces for progress. The paradox of Crawfish ultimately points to a new chapter in the co-evolution of humans and nature, in which we cannot give up our responsibility for management, nor can we lose our reverence for nature. Only by finding a balance between rationality and humility can we leave a prosperous and sustainable natural heritage for future generations in this era full of uncertainty.